My name is Mike Witt, and I am a web designer and developer. I've been doing that for the last 19 years. I've worked alongside search engine optimization folks, web marketing, but primarily my job is building websites and designing websites and things like that. The topics I'm going to be speaking to you about today are going to be tips for a community's website or small business websites, managing your presence online, and search engine optimization. And we're going to try to pause or just jump in if you think of a question. I'll be happy to try to answer those. And I encourage some of my colleagues who are in on this call to do the same. If you have supplemental information or just a fun fact. So let's begin. We want to talk about content, prioritizing content, and there are a few reasons we want to do that. One reason is that we want to make things easier for your website visitors. Another reason is that we want to consider the search engine optimization implications of where we're putting content on the page and what treatments we're using. By that I mean if you use a text editor, you probably see a pull down for paragraph, heading 1, heading 2. In my world, that's H1, H2, and search engines give priority to those, and so we want to use those properly. But circling back to tracking and prioritizing content, tracking helps us, and what I mean by tracking is a script that's running on your website that gathers data and sends it back to a database that's seeing where people click on your website, how much time they spend on a certain page, etc. There's certain behaviors that we can see. And what we want to do is take a look at that data and have conversations with our staff and team. And we worked with the city of South St. Paul on a communications audit, and it just so happened that they were starting out in the process of building a new website. And so they asked us right in our initial meeting, what do we need to think about? What do we need to look at? And so I looked at their analytics, and they had used the Civic Plus platform, which is a content management system that cities can use, and it's kind of pre-built for them to offer the things that cities typically offer. But it also has an analytics portion. You can also use on other websites, use Google Analytics, but they all kind of track the same things. And so when we looked at this, we found kind of their top pages, their frequently visited pages. Also in our discussions, we learned that English as a second language is something we needed to strongly consider. And so what we recommended was, here are your top pages people visit, but let's also associate an icon with the link. Let's put them front and center. And the reason we do the visual cue is it's helpful for English as a second language users who might not understand the language as well, and to be familiar when they come back with an icon or something that's maybe a visual cue rather than a text or language cue for them to find what they're looking for. And we're going to follow up with them and measure the results of kind of moving things around. And it just brings up a point about, if you have tracking, you should try to check it, let's say once a month. I tend to do it more often, but you'll find some insight. You may even find something that is broken. I've discovered that from time to time. So just a good thing to keep an eye on. So we prioritize the content. We put the links that people frequently visit right front and center on the page. Another client, Minnesota Association of Townships, they didn't have tracking. They had a staff who knew what their members wanted and why they visited their website. But we were building a new website for them, so we wanted to prioritize that content, and then they had a great opportunity to keep their content fresh. Keeping your content fresh is important because it makes you more relevant in search engines' eyes. It makes you more relevant in your audience's eyes. If they can come to you and rely on you to be a source of current information. So we brainstormed with them and decided that we wanted to place some links that their users seek, but it's kind of not their main meat and potatoes of what they do. So we've created a submenu at the top for kind of a quick link to things that their members kind of frequently do, and then had their main menu items below that. And also something you'll probably hear recommended is having your phone number or your email at the top of your page, so that one of the reasons people probably visit your website is to find your contact information. So that's a courtesy to have that right front and center for them to get a hold of you. As we move down the page, we can see that they have, news and alerts and upcoming events. The townships do a lot of training. They spend a lot of time at the Capitol. They have a lot of information to offer, and so we wanted to make sure that the users could find that quickly and easily. Another thing we wanted to give them is a website that scales to be mobile friendly. And this should be standard. If you're looking for a new website or building a new website, it shouldn't be an add-on or anything. It should just be a standard thing that your website company gives you for obvious reasons. It's been around for a while. It's something that just needs to be done. We have all these different viewports that people use nowadays. So we want to make sure that everything looks the way it's supposed to. So I spoke to you about prioritizing content and keeping content fresh. I think the best way to do this is to, brainstorm with your team or your staff and, talk about what your audience is looking for. What do you want them to see? And what do those frequent website updates look like? Daily is best, but that's probably unrealistic. And you could try for weekly updates to your website. It creates a sense that your community or your audience can rely on that channel for news and events and information. If you have a city website or business website, you could have a something of the month or something of the week, or it can even be off topic. Say you're a city, you could have a recipe of the week or something that would engage your audience maybe in a different way, but still creates a sense of something valuable to see. I'm going to take a break and ask if there's anybody who has any questions so far.
Mike, this is Trisha from Commerce. One thing that I just want to say regarding content, and I can say from what we do here at the Department of Commerce, is we actually have a content calendar that we manage to help kind of consistently keep that content fresh by month, and what kind of priorities are happening, whether it's within that quarter, and then how they can relate, back to social and the web, and have that connection of the communication between all of our assets.
That's a great idea and a suggestion. Is that also allow you to pre-schedule things ahead of time?
Yes, I mean, we have our PR team that do that on the social channels, but it also allows us to build those assets on our website, whether it's, design graphics, sections, content as far as articles, things that we're building out that we want to promote. And so it just kind of helps us plan, for the year.
Excellent. And some things to keep in mind too when you're thinking about adding content to your website is consider the search engine keywords that people, if you're trying to drive them to a page, what would they likely search? And you're going to know your audience better than I would, or you're doing your thing. So consider what the content says, and if there's some keyword-rich content that search engines can latch onto that's going to get the attraction of users out on the web. The next thing I want to talk about is developing a following. And social media has been great because it used to be built a website and you put it out there and you waited for people to come to it. You could do some search engine things and there was that angle, but it's, many of you may realize, getting good search rankings, getting the first list on the first page takes some effort. That's why social media is great. It creates a referral cycle. And we've discovered, working with different communities, that the police and sheriff's departments obviously have a high engagement, face-to-face engagement with the community. And I chose Wyoming, Minnesota, because they've used social media successfully and have a large following. They use humor and engage their followers regularly, but they also stay professional in their role as law enforcement officers. And Wyoming, Minnesota is a town of 7,800, but they have 39,200 Twitter followers. And I just think that's great that they've had such success, and I think it's something to think about why they had the success. I think law enforcement officers have an advantage, and they're probably trained into dealing with the public. But if you go through their Twitter feed, I guarantee you'll have a chuckle, or there's some good stuff out there. But developing a following is important because you can have your main audience and then associates of your audience hear about you by using hashtags, using likes and things that make these followers become repeaters for your message and get it out to a wider group that we couldn't do without before social media. I'm not our social media expert. Taylor does a great job with our clients and our internal websites, and she knows a lot about boosting and the power that can have. And I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing anything important that we could talk about with social media.
I think one thing that people often have a question about is in regards to what's more important, maybe on Facebook instead of Twitter, as far as commenting, liking, and sharing. And all of them essentially are very important, but when Facebook updated their algorithm, probably just over a year ago, they really made comments king. And the reason behind that is they see that as true engagement. So anytime you can encourage people to comment on your posts, it will show up higher on people's timelines. And that's with all social media. Everyone's kind of going in that route. So you may notice now, if you look, everyone's kind of encouraging comments on their posts. And when you're posting on social media, as far as connecting with your website, you can share articles and things that you put on your website and always direct people back there. I think a lot of times when we look at our analytics, one of the top places, I don't really know where on the list, Mike would know more about that, but we direct a lot of people to our website through social media just because a lot of people are looking there as one of the first places to find out more information. It's kind of an expected route to get timely information.
Hey Taylor, a couple of questions for you. Do you have ideas for ways that communities can encourage people to comment on their posts? Like, what are some creative things that you've seen?
Yeah, one of my favorite new ways is polls, and that's kind of a unique post where you can, if you have something going on that's not too controversial, or like we just did one for Pie Day, what's your favorite pie, pizza or the actual pie? They're kind of fun posts, and also humanizing your brand in those ways is really good too, because people forget that there's real people working behind the scenes, and if you're getting mad at someone, it's a real person. Another way to actually encourage comments is to ask a question. Make it an open-ended question that's not too hard to answer, and people aren't afraid to comment as long as other people are commenting. So even if you have a couple of internal staff who you could encourage, to get the conversation going, so someone's not the first person, that's always helpful. And then asking them to tag a person. So if you're looking for maybe recruiting someone, asking, hey, tag a friend that might be interested in this position is also another good tool to kind of tell people what to comment in your own kind of way.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, Taylor. I knew you'd have some good nuggets of information to share.
Thank you.
Another thing I want to talk about, we'll get into the managing your presence online section. And nerd alert, web guy nerd alert here. I'm going to talk about page speed. And I'm talking about page speed because it can affect your search engine rankings, and it definitely affects your user experience. As time goes on, we develop shorter and shorter attention spans and patience for technology to get going. It's my research has shown that the typical website loads in about a little over 5 seconds. Ideally, you're loading in 3 or 4 seconds. Sometimes that's hard to do with the information we want to present and how we want to present it. But one way we can help and improve our website speed, something that we can control if we're managing our content, are images. Images, oversized or unsized images can slow page loads. And it's tricky because we have to consider that, as I spoke about responsive websites, we need to have we can't have a mobile-sized image for a desktop display. So we want to have one that's going to get scaled down to fit a mobile viewport. But the point I'm trying to make is just take some time to crop and size those. Mainly just don't upload those 3200 pixel by 2400 pixel images. It's not, those sizes aren't big, or they're too big to, they're bigger than they need to be, even for Retina or HD on iPhones. And if you are a do-it-yourselfer, or you can use Photoshop, but if you don't have those kinds of tools, there are online tools that can help you resize your images and export them into a web-friendly format, like a JPEG or a PNG. Tools like imageresize.org is one, and it's just a way to help you. Sometimes you go out, you take a picture, and you just load it on the website, and without a consideration for all these other things that us nerds think about. So I just wanted to point out that keep an eye on your image sizes. It's one of the main things you'll see flagged if you do a test on your website for page speed or performance. Twitter, social media feeds, Facebook feeds on your website seem like a great way to have fresh content and cut down on managing multiple channels. But instead of embedding those feeds, having the actual Twitter post or Facebook post on your web page, consider using just an icon at the top of your website. Don't send people there if you're not updating your social channels, but if you want people to go there, just use an icon. And the reason we want to do that is something I touched on earlier, is to get that referral cycle going, develop followings. And back to page speed, loading these feeds is another request. It's another thing that the browser has to go out and get when someone's trying to load your web page. So just consider that as something to help your referral cycle by not having those feeds, and it'll help your page speed, and it'll help people focus on those social media channels rather than trying to just come to your website and saying, oh, it's just here. I don't need to go to the Twitter account because I can see it on the website. We want to discourage that and encourage people to focus on those channels so that they're there and share. They're more likely to share and add a comment when they're actually on those versus seeing it on your web page. So if you're interested, you can test your website. You can test your page load speed at websites like GTmetrix, metrix.com. It's a pretty standard website. What you'll see there is you enter your website address, it'll run some tests, and then you'll get a letter grade, and it's color coded. If you see yellow, orange, or red, that's not good. And then below that, it tells you why you're seeing those. And I guarantee you'll see one about images. You could see things about how many scripts you're loading. not to get too technical, but you would load scripts to do tracking, you'd load scripts to do any feeds you have, you would load scripts to control, say you have tabs on your web page because you want to organize the content, it's got to load a script and a style for that. So all these things that the browser has to do and talk with your server when your page is loading are, it's work, it's load, it's time. So go ahead and take a look at your page speed and see if there's ways you can improve. Some of those things might require you to reach out to somebody for a little technical help, but some of them are going to be things that you can control, maybe decide if you do or don't need something on your web page that might be slowing it down. And you'll see my email on the end of this presentation, and I'm happy to answer questions about these kinds of technical things you might find when you're running these tests. Another thing is Google has a little bit of a different thing, developers.google.com/speed/page speed/insights looks at your page speed in a different way. It just looks at the amount of requests you're making from the server, and those are the things I mentioned about scripts and styles and things that your web page needs to look good in the browser. Both tools offer great insight and expose problems. So some of the things you can take care of, and if you can't, ask somebody for help. There's also great online resources, and even on the pages themselves that say, what does this mean? How do I fix it? They're very good about guiding you in that direction.
Hey, Mike, you mentioned, I got down GT Metrics. What was the name of the other tool that you referenced? RX something?
gtmetrics.com, and then there was developers.google.com.
Okay. Developers.google.com. Okay. Are both of those free?
Yes.
Excellent. Thanks.
And there's another one, PageSpeed Insights. That one asks for your email address, but the other two do not. So I don't necessarily like giving that out I feel like I end up getting more spam. We talked about website speed, and I touched on search engine optimization and SEO, but let's look at how SEO can help your traffic. And I think a lot of this is some things that we've talked about, and it's going to be a reminder to be proactive on your social media account. I think Tricia made a good point of the kind of planning and things that they do to keep things fresh. And again, it's just a great way to refer traffic to your website, keep an audience, keep a following. And if you need help, there are lots of different social SEO strategies and how they work together and how you can use those, use social media to help your search engine optimization. And I'm going to give you another link, www.socialseo.com. And then there's /social-media-SEO-work-together. And that was a great article about tips and tricks and things to do to kind of get that going and take advantage of the SEO opportunities that social media channels offer you. I'm going to pause again for any questions about social media, and then I'm going to get a little bit deeper into SEO. So usage tracking tools for SEO and why they're important. Before we get into that and these tools, Google is not the only search engine, but people use it. 63% of internet users use it. They use Microsoft 24% and Yahoo 12%. So those three are the bulk of it. Google has kind of the lion's share of everything, and they kind of tend to dictate how we have to build our websites and how we have to manage our online presence so that we perform better in their search results rankings. And so something that's going to be helpful as you start to see all these different Google tools is having a Gmail account. And I would suggest creating a general purpose staff Gmail account. It's going to be required to manage any of your Google tools you're using, like Google Analytics, Search Console, and managing your business presence. But other benefits are that it's kind of a repository for, not only Google services, but other website services. It's web-based, so it continues to be around. So if there's staff turnover, there's still a history on this Google account of efforts you've made with different search tools. Reports will be emailed to that account. If you have troubleshooting or support and the person who signed up isn't no longer there, that won't affect a situation like this. So it's just kind of a good I don't know how to describe it, but it's just good to have a Gmail account for general purpose that many people can access. So how do we do some SEO ourselves? And this is tricky. I think we all want fast results, but I always equate SEO to a garden. You have to plant the seeds and then wait for them to sprout and then nurture it and weed. And it's kind of like SEO. You have to monitor things, go back, make corrections. And these tools that I'm going to talk about help you do that. This screen here that we're looking at is showing in Google Analytics where my traffic comes from. And on the right-hand side of the column, you can see that it says, hey, page views spiked for your contact page yesterday. And then you can get more insights and drill down. On the left side, we have how many people have found our website just by searching it, how many people directly typed in the URL, how many people came from a social media channel. And so it's really helpful to see where your traffic's coming from and use those channels more effectively or pay more attention to the ones that are providing more traffic. You want to spend some time to think about your search terms and as I talked about before, when you're writing content, writing it with search engine in mind and keywords. Where do you want to drive traffic to? What do you want people to aim for? And then also, it helps you to have an SEO target. If you just say, we just want more traffic, that's not good enough. We want to drive people to this particular page or we want to rank well for this particular keyword. There are lots of tools out there to help do that. And Google has the analytics part, which measures the traffic. And then they also have a companion called Google Search Console. And this is great for seeing what keywords people are using to find that then they end up with your website as a search result. If we look at this page in Google Search Console, it says query at the top and how many clicks that had and how many impressions. An impression means they saw it in the search result, they didn't click. So people were searching for A2S communications, they were searching for A2S. Anatomy of a font is an article we had. Olson Efforts is a client. So there's font anatomy, somebody looking for that article perhaps. And then some other general terms like full service communications or different terms that people were looking for and ended up seeing our website as a result. So what I can do with this information is take some of these things and sprinkle them maybe into other articles so that we generate more results based on that keyword. There are other aspects of the console too, like if a page is down and you might not know it, Google will crawl your site. They send out these bots who just go through all your pages and follow all your links. And they might find that you had a page, maybe it was for an event that has long passed, but Google went to that page before and now it can't find it because the page is down. So you would need to either, I don't want to get too technical, you want to have a way for people to get redirected to a page if there's no longer a page there. the more dead pages or broken links you have, the more you'll fall down the rankings because Google doesn't see you as relevant because of that. And I just want to take a break here too, because I think I've been talking fast and furious about this. So regarding Google Analytics, Google Search Console, and setting up those accounts, does anybody have any questions about that, or any colleagues have any supplemental feedback for me?
Hi, Mike. It's Trish again. I want to elaborate a little bit with SEO, and maybe you're going to touch on some of this too, Mike. We use Google Analytics here, and it is very important. We measure that on a monthly basis. You know, it helps us with our content, where people are coming to, you know, how many visits, again, with our bounce rate, you know, like Mike talked earlier, like load speed of some of those images, and whether or not you have PDFs in your site that maybe need to be compressed because it takes too long to load. Some of the things that we really focus on too with the SEO, Mike, is like headings of our website and making sure that the URLs and those headings and the content on that page is what people are actually looking for or trying to get to. So when they get to those pages, they're not lost, which can cause bouncing, you know, from site and causing people to leave because they get frustrated.
Absolutely. I'm glad you talked about titles, and I touched on that about my maybe my content titles, but page titles as well. If you can be pretty descriptive. If you happen to have a WordPress site, there are great tools out there that can help you optimize your content for keywords. One that I like to use is called Yoast, and it allows me to see the search result snippet that Google will present, and then it allows me to choose a keyword. So I'm focusing on this keyword, and then it tells me how I'm doing promoting, if you will, that keyword within my content, and how often it appears in my content, you know, and how much is too much, and even down to how my sentence structures are and the words I'm using. You know, it'll tell me you don't have enough of these transition words, and consider this and that. So there's just some great advice out there, and that's a particularly helpful tool for WordPress users. I'm not sure what kind of similar tools there are for static websites. What I mean by static website is one that's to make any updates, you have to kind of go into the HTML code itself and add things.
You know, and Mike, you also touched a little bit, you know, about within Google Analytics and finding out where people are going, and, you know, and finding you have all those opportunities in Google Analytics to check how many refers you have coming into your site, or, you know, who your outbound links are going to. And by increasing that relevancy of your content and the time that people are spending on your site, that helps improve your SEO as well.
Absolutely. Any questions? Do people wonder how to set that up, or anything like that?
Could you explain how to set that up?
Sure. It varies depending on the type of website you have. Again, back to websites that have content management systems like WordPress. I don't know specifically about Squarespace, if they allow you to install plugins or anything like that. But for WordPress, I can use a plugin that will allow me to give access to that plugin to my analytics. It adds the code for me into my website on all pages. And then it also has the added advantage of being on my dashboard in my WordPress, the place where I'm going in to see to do my back end, make pages, create posts. There's a dashboard there that has my traffic stats right on it. So that's really nice. You don't have to actually go over to the Google Analytics account and log in unless you want a deeper dive into the data. If you had a regular website that somebody built for you, and to make updates, you are going into the code, you either have familiarity with that, and Google will help you just say, hey, copy this chunk of code and put it in between these two places on the website, or just ask a developer. It's something that takes your website company. It's something that takes literally less than 10 minutes to get the code, put it in there, and you're up and running. And so there's you'll know as your website manager what your situation is, and if you ever run into any issues or you want to get that going, I can definitely help with that. I've done that dozens of times, so it's a pretty painless process. Some other SEO tools. I've discovered that SEMRush is a great tool for do-it-yourselfers to monitor user data and create more effective strategies. Some of the things you can see on this screenshot are you can see side-by-side comparisons. So what I've done for some of our some of our websites is to choose a keyword and see how I rank for it, and then see how my competitors rank for it. And then what I can do is take measures. Maybe I'll rearrange the order of my title so that that keyword is now in the front of the sentence rather than in the second part, and see if that improves my ranking. And this, just for that specifically, sends me a report every week. Hey, you moved up, you moved down. It's kind of a nice thing to see, but it also reminds me that I'm doing this, and that I can maybe go back after a few weeks if it's not working and try a different approach. I'm just touching on a few things that this tool does, but it's very helpful and insightful, not just for your own website, but for your competitors' websites and how successful they are, maybe for similar keywords, and maybe you'll see an opportunity for keywords they're not taking advantage of that'll push you up higher and faster on the search results because you've optimized for it and they haven't. So it's a tool that's $100 a month, but if you've shopped around, it might be cheaper than you've found to have somebody do it for you. It can be expensive. Like I said, it requires constant maintenance like a garden. You have to react to the data that you're seeing from your analytics, from your Search Console, and try to take different approaches if you see something's not working, or build upon the successes that you've had. So I'm going to hand it over to Trish so she can talk about Google businesses and managing what a user will see when they type in your web, whether it's a term that your website has, but just managing this little section of information that people will find when they do a search. So just before I do that, I'm going to just remind everybody to keep your content fresh. Consider looking at your social media, and it's so helpful in building your following and referring people to your website and website to your social media, etc. You want to build that up, and email marketing fits into that cycle as well. And then encourage you to use the data that you see. Start tracking if you're not. Try to take advantage of the free tools that are out there, and then have discussions with your associates and your staff to set goals for your website. What do you want it to do? It'll help you measure your success. With that, I think if there's any other questions, I'll answer them, or I can turn it over to Trish.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Before I bounce into the Google presence of your business and your community, a couple things I just want to add on here, Mike, if you might want to chime in a little bit on it too, is there's, monitoring your site for broken links, making, it kind of goes along with keeping your content fresh out there. Because if people go out there and their links are broken, I mean, it's, they get frustrated, right? And that causes people to leave your site. There are applications that you can use to track broken links. Most recently, Department of Commerce used Site Improve. I'm not if anybody is aware of that system. We're recently transitioning into another one called InSpider. Very reasonable at cost, and you can scan many sites to find your broken links, because sometimes, as you have articles, you have a lot of outbound links, it's hard to to track and find all those broken links. So, there's some of those options out there too. And Mike, I don't know if you guys are aware of any other products that you guys have used in the past, or.
The ones you mentioned are definitely, we'll call it industry standard. Those are good. And I tend to, since we manage a lot of WordPress sites, use plugins that do that, literally called like Broken Link Checker. But that's a great point, is to try to use those tools and find those.
Right. And then along with all that is, back in 2015, Google started to penalize sites that were not mobile friendly or mobile optimized. And they were bumping them down actually in their search engine ranking. And so always to kind of keep in mind, whether or not your website is mobile friendly. I think it's like 79 or 80% of users are actually mobile users when it comes to searching for businesses or, different things. I'm not sure if you have any other research on findings with stuff like that, Mike.
No, and I think that's a good stat, and you'll find that these tools will also help you tell you specifically what your audience is using. For example, my client, the Minnesota Association of Townships, has a lot of rural communities. A lot of their traffic is still on desktop. There's not a lot of mobile phones and things like that. So it's important to know the kind of the general feeling of the market and your specific users too, because they could vary situation to situation.
Right. One thing I can also say too, from experience, just recently we've modified the state of North Dakota's website, and when it comes to site architecture and the navigation for the site, and just kind of getting a feel how people use a website as far as navigation, and we're in the process of modifying and making some changes based on feedback that we've placed on our site, and it's called Hotjar. And where you can actually place feedback where it does these heat maps, and you can see where people are going, maybe where they're struggling to find information on your site. Just basically it gives you that feedback of what you can improve on your site. And I'm not sure if you've worked with any clients with that, Mike, as well, but it's been extremely helpful. Sometimes you get some comments on there you'd rather not read, but it is helpful to kind of have an understanding, because it just plays that it plays color code on your site, and it kind of heats it up to tell you exactly where the hot spots people go to.
Yeah, those are neat. I've seen those. I like those. It's such a neat insight into user behavior.
Yeah. So those are some other options, and Hotjar is really inexpensive. It's not an expensive product at all.
I realize one quick thing, I'm sorry to interrupt, is a SSL certificate for your website. That's another thing that Google will penalize your site for in rankings. It's the little padlock you see on a website. It's depending on your situation, it can be free. I found places that will do free SSL certificates. They tend to average $50 to $70 a year with a typical web host, but it's a pretty painless process. If you're not comfortable, your hosting company can definitely take care of all of it for you. It is definitely something worth looking into, and will be worth its annual fee.
I'm just going to kind of just touch on this lightly, and Mike kind of ended a little bit with this, and being able to claim your spot, because really anybody can go out there and look, and it brings some confirmed information of who you are, and allows your community or your business to be able to tell your story versus somebody else out there that's going out and searching. So this document here will make sure Emily provides that at the end, I'm assuming. We also have a link that I can give to Emily that you can go out and just download this on the Commerce site, actually, is where we have it.
Yep, and I also sent it out in an email I sent to everybody yesterday.
Perfect. So your first step basically So basically, it's to help extend your reach, and it comes visibility and findability to people that are looking for you. And so by doing that, you just need to, the first step is to verify your identity and who you are and take ownership in that. So I should probably pull up a different browser so you can kind of look kind of how it views. This gives you a little bit of messaging. Being able to customize your photos and take ownership of what your listing looks like. So here's an example of how Department of Commerce is you can see that we are verified, we're checked here, that we own this, and that we're able to tell the story of our business. And you can go out and claim that, and it's free. You can go out and take care of this, and an easy step is just to begin to find out if you are or not claimed. So we'll make sure that this gets shared, like Emily mentioned, and if you have any questions, on how to get started with some of this and verifying your identity out here on Google, I think Mike could probably assist with some of that, and we have people in our office that could assist you with that. With that, I'm gonna jump to a presentation here quick. Hopefully you'll see my slide on here. With the Google offerings, we're going to be having a travel conference. Prior to that, I'm going to kind of get to the very end of my slide and kind of go to here. We have a travel conference coming up on April 15th through the 17th, and it's in Minot. And we will be having a speaker there that will be from Julie from the Dickinson Convention and Visitors Bureau is going to be presenting about claiming your Google and the importance of that. And so if you're interested in attending the conference, we do have our link out at our tourism website, and I can make sure Emily shares that back with everybody at the end of this conference, at the end of this meeting as well. One thing, like we talked about, getting your presence out there and cross-promoting. One of the things that Department of Tourism does here is we do have, and maybe some of you that are on the call are aware of this, but we do have a partner access system that we allow our communities to post attractions, accommodations, events, and any type of deals with us. This is a free advertising for you. We cross-promote. Last year, tourism had more than 1.2 million visitors to our website, and our goal is to get those visitors to you. So to reach out to your communities and what you have to offer there. In 2018, we had over 250,000 click-throughs to our partner websites. And this is all free to you. So if you're not aware of this system that we do have in place, happy to share some of that information with you and how we can cross-promote your community websites through us. You can enhance your listings for your communities by adding pictures and videos. Being able to add all of your social media connections could be tied into here too. And then by you listing your information with us, we promote those events through our press releases here that we send out from our office, and I believe we do them monthly. And the best part is, like I said, it's free. So the requesting access is that URL that you're seeing on the screen to get part of that system. But if you have any questions whether or not your listing or your community could be represented on our website, I'm happy to help with any questions on that. But just to know that we do have some partnering opportunities for you that are free, and we like to, being able to share your community's experiences with our visitors. All right, mine was short and sweet at the very end. Emily and Mike, I don't know if you have anything more you would like to add.
I just want to tell a story that references the Google business, and we had a new client, and during the course of getting ready to launch their website, I went and Googled their business, and I found a review. This was an electrical company, but I found a review about how bad the food was, and it didn't make sense, obviously. This Google My Business and having a verified account and having claimed it already, I was able to go in and quickly send Google a dispute saying, hey, this is a misplaced or some kind of a spammy post. This isn't even our business. And I think within 24, 48 hours, that was off of our listing.
Right.
So another reason to just own that.
And it's scary because anybody can go out and claim that, and then if it's not legit, I mean, they could be putting falsified photos out there.
Correct.
So it's just super important to go out and view your community to find out what's there.
Absolutely. And then the more reviews you can get, the positive obviously are better, but that also helps too, I think, with your SEO.
Mm-hmm.